How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your November 2018 horoscope for Libra. So, Libra, this is going to be a very interesting month for you. To start it off, on November 6th, we have Uranus retrograding back into your 7th house, bringing a lot more explosion and wild card things to relate to when it comes to relationships in your life and other people and relationships to things in itself. Uranus is all about liberation and freedom and explosions, and he really is just a wild card. And when Uranus goes into the 7th house of other people, of one-on-one relationships, and it's in this Mars ruled sign, you're probably going to see a lot more action coming from people, things just kind of coming out of nowhere, being brought onto you from other people. That's very direct. We'll talk more about that as we get on later with the month, because we do have the Venus opposition to that still, but that's going to be the theme of Uranus kind of touching back into there for the next couple months. On the same day, the North Node retrogresses into Cancer, and the South Node is going to retrogress into Capricorn. And we're just going to talk about the North Node for right now, and I'm going to talk about the South Node and the North Node and Cancer and Capricorn here soon. But to focus on the North Node is what we want to consume, what we're always hungry for, what we're always wanting to attain. It's our spiritual compass and what direction that we want to head into. And it's something that is very from within. It's very, like I said, it's like your soul's compass. It's something that you really want to follow and you don't know why. It's kind of like your intuition. And as the North Node moves into Cancer, where Cancer is all about protecting and nurturing and forming and trusting and relating, as the North Node moves in there, you're going to want to focus more on those things of trusting, of being involved, of connecting, of nurturing as well. And this is going to be in your 10th house of your career, of your vocation in life, what you're kind of doing. And so as the North Node moves in there, this is going to be a big time to focus on what do you want to protect and what do you want to nurture within the context of your career, and really focus on what do you want to be doing outside, what do you want to be doing in this world, what do you want people to be knowing you for. And as the North Node follows or goes into Cancer in your 10th house, you're going to find yourself really wanting to focus more on, okay, what do I want to create and nurture and make your own within your context of a career, within the context of kind of just what you're doing in this world at this moment. So yeah, those are two really big deals. Moving forward, on November 7th, we have the new moon in Scorpio, and this is going to be happening in your 2nd house. So you've had Jupiter go through Scorpio in your 2nd house. You've been learning about what you own and what you possess and getting rid of what you don't want anymore and holding on to the things that mean something. You've been learning a little bit more about your relationship with money and your beliefs around money. That's been Jupiter and Scorpio's job. We've also had Venus retrograde in Scorpio in your 2nd house, where you really have to understand where you put your value, what that value manifests as, and so on and so forth. But this new moon is really just going to be a big breath of fresh air when it comes to things like finances and it comes to things of material possessions. Not necessarily so much of cleaning up and clearing out, but utilizing and realizing and sitting with what you've learned and what you've experienced this past year with Jupiter and Venus doing their thing in Scorpio and your 2nd house. So the new moon's going to be dope. The next day, on November 8th, we have Jupiter ingressing into Sagittarius. So Jupiter leaves your 2nd house and he moves into your 3rd house of basically the 1st house is who you are, the 2nd house is what you have, and the 3rd house is how you use it. So with the 3rd house being your siblings, with it being your local and very immediate environment, it has to do with language and writing and speaking, and it has a lot to do with how you kind of use yourself in the best way possible. And now that we have your 3rd house ruler, Sagittarius, Jupiter, in its home sign, you're going to find yourself really being able to utilize a lot more of the tools that you have in like the best ways possible. It's like you are called upon for the perfect job that you're the perfect person for, and you can do it and you can go for it. And Jupiter is just really kind of like, hey, you have the capability to go about this. You just have to be able to have that faith and have that belief of keeping to, like, basically to keep going. And this is just going to be a good time to really kind of be utilized and kind of put yourself to, not the test, but to live up to your name, to live up to what you are capable of doing, and not just kind of like, not necessarily like sitting back and relaxing, but you know, good things are out there for you to experience with Jupiter and Sagittarius, so go and do it. The next day, on November 9th, we have Mars trining Venus. And as this is a pretty big deal because, you know, Venus has been retrograde. She still is retrograde at this time. She will be in your first house, back in your first house. She'll be back in Libra, where she will be strong, and she'll be really evaluating, you know, this Venus retrograde has been about a lot about self-worth and where you apply yourself, and learning more about your relationship with yourself and bringing more love to that and bringing more happiness to that. And as Mars has been retrograde and he has been in your fifth house and he's been doing a bunch of work there, Mars is now starting to move forward and help you connect to more of what it is that you want to create. The fifth house is love, romance, sex, art, music, you know, all of the fun stuff. And as Mars has been there for a little while, it's been a little bit hard, but as he's moving forward, you're starting to learn where do you need to establish boundaries and really act upon those type of things, and not so much alienate and isolate yourself from the things that you want to do. And Venus is kind of, as Venus and Mars trine, it's kind of like, hey, you need to realize that you are worthy, that you have this ability, that you can have more self-love, and start really pursuing the things that you want to, in the sense of where you really don't involve yourself with things where you're like, oh, that's good, but, and I like it, but I can never be a part of that. I couldn't be able to do that. Mars trine Venus is kind of like, hey, if you want to do something, like, you got the balls, you got the confidence to go about it, just go ahead and do it. And then we have, on November 14th, actually, we're not even going to talk about that, because that's for later on. But on November 16th, Venus will go direct. So after we have this Mars-Venus trine, and, you know, you start to feel a little bit more comfortable in taking action and doing the things that you really want to create, more of what your interests are, more of what your hobbies are, and you have more of that self-appreciation to where you can go about that, Venus goes direct, and that's kind of like, all right, man, it's time. Like, what was this Venus retrograde lesson about for you? How have you reshaped the way that you view yourself and your relationship to money and your relationship to possession and possessions that you can hold against yourself? So as Venus moves forward, this is good stuff. But at the same time, Mars is going to move into Pisces, where Mars then goes into your sixth house. And Mars is all about pushing forward, moving, severing, cutting, inflating, like not Jupiter, but inflammating, like from heat. And he's moving into Pisces, where he doesn't have, it's kind of like trying to fight like Gandhi. Like, you can't just like punch Gandhi in the face. It's more deeper than that. And so Mars doesn't have a job. He's in a weird position where he has to kind of think and really feel for himself for what he wants to do, versus being told what to do and being able to take that action on it. We find this happening in your sixth house of your routine, of your work, of your sense of service, of your sense of employment. This is also where things kind of break. This is where things kind of fall apart. This also has to do with your health. And as Mars moves into your sixth house, you're going to start finding trouble kind of getting into the right routine that you really want to, and you're going to have to really get out of your comfort zone and kind of work with what you have, and kind of like, you know, bend and shape the water, and to kind of get the right situation that you want. As much as you want it to be like clean cut and, you know, this is the way things have to be, Mars in Pisces challenges you to get out of your comfort zone and discover what is the best habits and what's the best routine you can really set for yourself to get the things to get accomplished what you need to accomplish and have a sense of service. This is also dealing with being able to create your own structured like habits and routine that works for you, that brings out your most unique sense of service and the most efficient and effective way of doing things for you. So again, you might feel a little bit challenged by, you know, having the energy and the motivation to keep going, but just find a creative and a unique way for you to fit that into your context. Then on the next day, November 17th, Mercury will go retrograde. And Mercury is or has been in your third house, which is about writing, communicating, speaking, you know, really utilizing what you have and being able to do stuff. Mercury's been in Sag, it's his detriment, he gets very overwhelmed there. And as he retrogrades, now that Jupiter's there too, you're going to want to rethink about how you really are going about things. Where are you really going? Because you're going to see that there's a very positive road you're going down, but you just want to make sure that you're heading down this road because you really want to, not just because it's good. And this is going to be a pretty big deal, and we're going to talk more about it, but on November 17th, that's when Mercury goes retrograde, so you're going to start seeing a lot more of rethinking, reanalyzing, really taking smaller steps and retracing your steps. That's all going to happen on November 17th. 2 days later, we have Mars squaring Jupiter. And I was really talking about the Mars thing because this is what's going to be the big deal. Is Jupiter in Sagittarius in your third house is giving you all of these new ways to really utilize yourself in the best way and believe in that and, see the positive. But Mars is just like not finding a routine and not finding a way to fit in the way that you might want to envision it or the expectations that you have. And during this time, like I said, you're really going to have to get out of your comfort zone and think outside the box of how you can best work this into your routine, into actually applying this new sense of application in an everyday way, in a sense of service, in a way that really is a win-win situation. You're going to see it's going to be kind of like making a house of cards. Like if you kind of mess up a little bit, it's going to all crumble down, but that's okay. You could start over. That is just going to be a lot of morphing for you, and I think that's going to definitely be more of a challenge than anything else. Then on November 22nd, we have the Sun moving into Sagittarius. Sag season begins. The light and the focus ends up being more on this third house role of, could have more to do with your siblings, could have more to do what you're actually, how you're utilizing yourself. And again, more of this Jupiter stuff, more of what you kind of believe, what you can really fit yourself into in the best way possible. Something that's exciting and fun. But the thing is during this full moon, or not this full, I spoiled it for you guys. When the Sun moves into Sagittarius, immediately we have the full moon in Gemini. And this is a pretty big deal because as you know, we have this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, it's Sag season now, Jupiter's there, you're really learning and discovering different ways you can utilize yourself in the best way. We have this moon being, brought up in a full moon is basically, it lights up what we always, what we don't always see. And this is in Mercury. This is in a Mercury-ruled sign of Gemini, where we're talking about communication, of intellect, of thinking, of understanding and messages. And as we have this full moon, this is going to be in your 9th house of belief, of spirituality, of far distance places, of foreign things. And this full moon is really going to bring the realization that you kind of need, that in order to move forward and to apply yourself in the way that you've been really needing, that you've been really trying to look for. So get excited for this full moon. I think it's going to be really good for you guys to get very clear on this. But then right after that, on the 25th, we have the Sun-Jupiter conjunction. That's going to be at 3 degrees. They're going to stay at 3 degrees, move 4 degrees, stay at that conjunction. That's going to be on the 25th and 26th. Long story short, really good stuff as far as really setting the intentions of Jupiter and Sag and what that really means, and putting a lot more good and better things of how you're really moving about things in your local environment and things around you, being able to have better communication, being able to express the way you want to in a very happy and positive way. It's just going to be really good. And then, on the 27th, we have the Sun and Mercury conjunction. When Mercury goes Cazimi, is under the beams. And this is when Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius, you're just going to be really thinking about, okay, what's the best way I can apply myself? What's the best way I can go about this to really get the results I want? This conjunction is really going to give you that awareness that you really need to see and kind of give you it's kind of like giving you the map that you need in order to keep moving forward and rather than just kind of trailblazing. And this is really important because right after you have this, realization and things start to make more sense, Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, literally immediately after. And this is kind of like Jupiter going, hey, great, you've realized it, let's teach you now. Jupiter wants to teach, Jupiter wants you to learn, Jupiter wants to give you great things. And so as Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, even though it will be retrograde, it's going to be kind of like, you've got this, I'm sending good energy your way, you know how to apply this, you just have to still go through the process. Because then on November 30th, we have Mercury going back into Scorpio, where Mercury's going to be in Scorpio in your 2nd house, focusing on what you have, focusing on what you want to possess. And Mercury is going to be very, very clear in Scorpio, whereas in Sagittarius, you can become overwhelmed and unclear. So as Mercury goes back into Scorpio in your 2nd house, focusing on what you have and how to actually apply it, you're going to be a lot more clear on what arsenal of tools you can use for the job that you need to do. Also on November 30th, the last day of November, we have the Venus and Uranus opposition at 29 Aries and 29 Libra. And this is going to be kind of, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be very good for you guys because Venus is in your 1st house, she's in her domicile, and Uranus is in just the 7th house in Aries. And Uranus is explosions, big ups and downs. It could be good, it could be bad. But Venus is your 1st house where you're wanting to express yourself more. And I find that you're going to have a very explosive energy one day to just be like, I'm me, this is how I feel, and everything's good. that that Venus-Uranus opposition is going to be big. So definitely look for what people are bringing to you out of the blue and see how you can react more authentic to who you are when that happens. So with that being said, that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and I will be seeing you guys for next month's horoscope.